back in my wayward youth, I studied the Aurora Borealis. I actually wrote my doctoral thesis on that subject, and then taught at Rice University in Texas just before the moon landing, when one of the things that I was charged to do was to figure out whether the Aurora Borealis particles could hurt the astronauts on the way to the moon. I worked with great experimental scientists. I was the theorist. How the aurora works, we discovered. How the aurora works, we discovered through the work of the famous Eugene Parker, who just passed away within the last few months. A great space scientist and one of my heroes as I was growing up. But the aurora is caused by what Eugene Parker described as the constant outflow from the sun, and in fact from all stars that we know of like the sun. And that outflow flashes into space millions of miles an hour and will go 100 million miles to interact with the Earth or any planet that has a magnetic field. And the Earth has a magnetic field that without a solar wind would look like a typical magnetic field. And with the solar wind, the combination of the two drags the Earth's magnetic field back to form a tail, almost like a comet tail. And that tail interacts with the polar, the magnetic poles, north and south, on the night side of the Earth, and the magnetic field lines move, and moving magnetic field lines, they almost flap like some kind of a bellows, will cause electric fields, and those electric fields will capture with the magnetic fields the particles. They'll spiral and accelerate down on the night side and ultimately interact with the upper atmosphere towards the poles. So that's why you see aurora more in Alaska and Canada, and now and then it will come down to the northern United States, and then on the rarest of occasions, I'm only talking about the northern, but there's always the Aurora Australis as well, will it get down to the point where you'll actually see aurora in far south as, say, Mexico City. And then when you see it, the particles are moving so fast, they penetrate so far, they interact with the upper atmosphere oxygen atoms and cause a radiation in red, exciting of the orbital electrons. When they collapse back, they give off radiation, and it's in the red for the highly energized particles. For the ones we see, mostly green and blue, you're talking more about exciting the electrons in orbit around nitrogen, and those, when they collapse, give off colors that are more like blue and a little bit of yellow, greenish. So that's my story, and it turns out that over the years that story has turned out to gain more and more interest, particularly since, for reasons that geoscientists don't fully understand, the magnetic poles are moving rather dramatically, and there's some suggestion that they could flip over. And when they flip over, there'll be a time when there's no magnetic field, and when that happens, it could create chaos on a planet, because planets that don't have magnetic fields, like Mars today, that solar wind, when it hits the planet, causes all kinds of interactions that could affect life as we know it. So the solar wind wouldn't have the impact, say, that the comet, the asteroid that hit off the Yucatan had on destroying all big life on the planet for some millions of years. But it could have an impact that would create a situation where we look in a few million years like Mars does today. Heaven forbid, not Venus. That's too hot. But Anyway, I can go on, but that's my story. By the way, I did teach space physics, space science, plasma physics at both Rice and at Boston College before my career took a veer and I became Dean of Admissions, and then started a company with my wife to figure out how marketing works in higher education. And we haven't figured it out yet, but we're still working on it.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.